The alarm blared through the deck of the Halen R8, a jagged symphony of wails and klaxons that shook every rivet in the ship's bulkheads. Captain Delaran Rask slammed his fist into the comm console, cutting the noise in half. His second-in-command, Crixa, turned to him, her pale green face losing what little color it had left. "Captain, it's the vault," she said, her voice trembling. "One of the stasis pods, it's breached." Rask froze for a fraction of a second before the old instincts kicked in. He pulled himself upright, his boots clanging on the grated floor. "Seal it. Lock it down now," he barked. "Containment protocols." "It's too late, sir," Crixa replied, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. The breach spread. "We're looking at a cascade failure. It's not just one pod anymore, it's 32, and counting." 32. Rask's chest tightened. 32 humans. The deadliest apex predators in the known universe. Creatures so dangerous they had been locked away eons ago, their existence hidden even from the Council's archives. For over a millennium, the rule had been absolute: never wake the humans. And now, someone had broken it. Who? Rask demanded. Who triggered it? Crixa hesitated, her eyes darting toward the data stream scrolling across her console. "We don't know. But there was a proximity alert before the breach. A small craft entered the vault's perimeter." Rask swore under his breath. "Pirates," he muttered. "Idiots." He turned to the bridge crew. "Divert all power to the containment fields. I don't care if it drains the engines. Buy us time." "Aye, Captain," came the chorus of replies. The Halen R8 was a security frigate, tasked with guarding the vault, an enormous, barren station orbiting the dying star of Zython 7. Officially, it was a classified storage facility for ancient relics. Unofficially, it was a tomb. And now, that tomb was waking up. The comm system crackled, and a frantic voice filled the bridge. "This is Maintenance Unit 47. Sector B is compromised. They are moving, sir." The humans, the transmission cut off, replaced by the sickening sound of tearing metal and a gurgled scream. Crixa stared at Rask. "Orders." For a moment, the captain's mind raced. Standard containment protocols were useless against what they were dealing with. The humans weren't just strong, they were fast, adaptable, and intelligent beyond anything in the galaxy's evolutionary chain. Worst of all, they had been engineered for war. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel," Rask said finally. "I want every last bolt locked down between us and the vault. And send a distress signal to the Council." "The Council's 40 hours out, sir," Crixa said. "We don't have that kind of time." "Then we hold the line," Rask growled. "Or we die trying." Deep within the vault, in the dimly lit chamber of the breached stasis pods, the air crackled with an electric hum. The humans stirred, their pale forms emerging from cryogenic hibernation. Frost clung to their skin, and their eyes, piercing, cold, calculating, snapped open. The first to wake was Unit Alpha 17, known among his kind as Locke. His muscles tensed as he pulled himself from the pod, his mind racing to make sense of his surroundings. The room smelled of ozone and fear. He wasn't alone. Behind him, the other pods hissed open, one by one. Humans emerged, each as lethal as the last. They spoke no words, but their eyes met, understanding passing between them like a current. Locke's hand brushed against the control panel of his pod, and his lips curled into a grim smile. The system was primitive, ancient compared to what he had been accustomed to before the sleep. He accessed the data logs, scanning for information. "Vault," he muttered, his voice low and gravelly. "Containment facility. Guarded by aliens." The others glanced at him, their expressions unreadable. "They think they can keep us locked away," he continued. "They think we've forgotten who we are." The room shuddered as the lights flickered. Outside, distant explosions echoed through the station. The vault's security systems were trying to activate containment measures, but Locke knew better. They wouldn't hold for long. A sound caught his attention, the soft click of boots on metal. He turned, his enhanced senses honing in on the noise. A patrol of alien guards rounded the corner, their plasma rifles raised. They froze at the sight of the humans, their elongated faces contorting in terror. "Contact!" one of them shouted, opening fire. Locke moved before the first shot landed. He lunged forward, a blur of motion, his hand striking the nearest guard's weapon. The rifle shattered, and with a single twist of his wrist, he broke the alien's neck. Around him, the other humans sprang into action, dismantling the patrol with brutal efficiency. In less than 10 seconds, the corridor was silent again, the guards lying lifeless on the floor. Locke wiped the green blood from his hands and glanced back at his group. "They woke us," he said. "Now they'll wish they hadn't." Back on the Halen R8, chaos erupted as the ship's sensors registered movement throughout the vault. The humans were spreading like wildfire, cutting through security forces and breaching containment zones. The maintenance crew was all but annihilated, and the automated defense systems were proving useless. "Sir, they've reached the central control hub," Crixer reported. "If they override the station's systems, they'll have full control." "Not if we stop them first," Rask replied. He turned to the weapons officer. "Target the vault's main power core. If we can't contain them, we'll destroy the entire station." The officer hesitated. "Sir, if we do that, we'll lose any chance of escape. The explosion will take us with it. Better us than the rest of the galaxy," Rask said grimly. "Do it." But before the order could be carried out, the ship rocked violently. The lights dimmed, and the hum of the engines faltered. A new alarm blared, this one far more urgent. "They've breached our ship," Crixer whispered, horror dawning on her face. "The humans, they are here." Rask's stomach sank. He grabbed his sidearm, motioning for the bridge crew to arm themselves. "Seal the bridge. No one gets in." The sound of metal tearing filled the air, followed by the heavy thud of boots. The bridge doors buckled, then gave way, and the humans entered. Locke led the charge, his eyes scanning the room with cold precision. He moved faster than anyone could react, disarming the guards and incapacitating them with surgical strikes. Within moments, the crew was subdued, and Rask found himself staring down the barrel of his own plasma pistol, now in Locke's hand. The human tilted his head, studying the captain like a predator sizing up its prey. "You're the ones who put us in the dark," Locke said, his voice even but filled with menace. "Why?" "You're too dangerous," Rask replied, forcing himself to meet the human's gaze. "We had no choice." Locke's expression darkened. "You should have killed us when you had the chance." Without warning, he fired, the blast grazing Rask's shoulder and leaving him writhing on the floor. Locke turned to the other humans, nodding toward the ship's controls. "This galaxy forgot what it means to fear," he said. "Let's remind them." As the humans seized control of the Halen R8, Rask's mind raced. They weren't just escaping, they were planning something far worse. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The Halen R8 drifted in the shadow of the vault, its once bright running lights now flickering erratically. Inside, chaos reigned. The bridge crew, restrained and surrounded by humans, could do little but watch as their ship became a weapon in the hands of their enemies. Locke moved with precision, barking orders to his fellow humans as they adapted to the ship's alien controls. His movements were sharp, deliberate, like a predator circling its next kill. "Status?" Locke asked, his eyes fixed on the holographic display at the center of the bridge. A human named Pierce, lean and wiry with a scar running down his jaw, studied the interface. "Their systems are primitive, but functional. We've disabled external comms, so no one's coming to help. Weapons are operational. Engine core at 70% capacity." Locke nodded. "Good. We'll need that firepower when we make our move." Rask, crumpled against the wall with his shoulder seared from Locke's earlier shot, spat blood onto the deck. "You don't know what you're doing," he growled. "The Council will come for you. You can't win." Locke turned, his icy stare locking onto the captain. "You think this is about winning?" He crouched down, bringing his face level with Rask's. "This is about survival. Your kind locked us away because you were afraid. Afraid of what we are. You've spent centuries playing gods, deciding who lives and who dies. Now it's our turn." Before Rask could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Crixer, still bound but watching the screens intently, gasped. Captain, something's wrong with the vault. Locke straightened, turning his attention to the holographic display. The vault, visible through the viewport, was shuddering violently. Massive sections of its outer structure were collapsing, spiraling into the void like drifting corpses. From its core, tendrils of energy rippled outward, distorting space around it. "What is that?" Pierce asked, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. Rask's eyes widened in realization. "The failsafe," he muttered. "You triggered it." Locke frowned. "Explain." "The vault wasn't just a prison," Rask said, his voice shaking. "It was a containment zone. The energy core isn't designed to hold you, it's designed to erase you if you ever got out. If it destabilizes completely, it'll collapse into a singularity. Everything in this sector will be obliterated." Pierce swore under his breath, but Locke remained unmoved. He turned to another human, a stocky woman named Ava, who was working on the weapons console. "Can we shut it down?" Ava shook her head. "Not from here. The controls are hardwired to the vault's mainframe. If we want to stop it, we'll have to board the station." Locke grinned, a sharp, predatory smile. "Good. I was hoping for a fight." The boarding shuttle sliced through the vacuum, its engines glowing faintly against the blackness of space. Inside, Locke stood at the head of the group, his hands gripping the overhead rail. Behind him, 10 of his finest, humans engineered for war and survival, prepared for what lay ahead. "Mission simple," Locke said, his voice carrying over the hum of the shuttle. "We get to the control hub, override the failsafe, and get back to the Halen R8 before this thing tears itself apart. Stay sharp. These aliens might not be soldiers, but desperation makes them dangerous." Ava nodded, checking the plasma rifle she had scavenged from the ship's armory. "And if they get in our way?" Locke's expression darkened. "You know what to do." As the shuttle docked with the vault's outer airlock, the humans moved with practiced efficiency, cutting through the station's security protocols and forcing the doors open. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of burning circuitry and ionized metal. The vault's once sterile corridors were now littered with debris, and the walls trembled with the force of the failing energy core. "Movement ahead," Pierce said, his voice low as he scanned the area with a thermal scope. 6 targets, armed. Locke raised a hand, signaling the group to spread out. He crept forward, his footsteps silent against the grated floor. As they rounded the corner, the alien guards came into view, 6 reptilian figures clutching plasma rifles, their eyes wide with fear. Before they could react, the humans struck. Ava fired the first shot, her plasma bolt catching one of the guards in the chest. The others followed suit, moving with lethal precision. Within seconds, the corridor was clear, the guards' bodies crumpled on the floor. "Keep moving," Locke ordered. "We're on borrowed time." Meanwhile, back on the Halen R8, Rask and Krixa worked furiously to free themselves from their restraints. With the humans gone, the bridge was eerily silent, save for the occasional groan of the ship's hull. "We have to stop them," Krixa whispered, her hands working at the bindings around her wrists. "If they regain control of the vault, they'll be unstoppable." Rask nodded, his mind racing. The humans were a nightmare, but the failsafe was an even greater threat. If the vault's energy core collapsed, the singularity would consume everything, including the humans themselves. Finally, Rask's bindings came loose. He grabbed a nearby plasma pistol, checking the charge. "We'll override their systems," he said. "If we can reroute power to the vault stabilizers, we might be able to buy some time." Krixa frowned. "And if they come back?" Rask's grip tightened on the pistol. "Then we make sure they don't leave this ship alive." Inside the vault, the humans reached the central control hub. The room was massive, its walls lined with ancient machinery and glowing conduits that pulsed with an eerie light. At the center of the chamber stood the failsafe terminal, a towering console surrounded by a shimmering force field. Ava approached the console, her eyes scanning the alien script etched across its surface. "This is it," she said. "But the shield's blocking access. We'll need to disable it." Locke turned to Pierce. "Find the power source and shut it down. Ava, cover him." As the two moved to carry out their orders, the chamber shook violently, throwing the group off balance. From the shadows, a new threat emerged: massive security drones, their metallic frames bristling with weaponry. The vault's final defense had activated. "Contact!" Ava shouted, opening fire. The humans scattered, their weapons blazing as the drones advanced. Plasma bolts filled the air, the sharp crack of explosions echoing through the chamber. Locke moved with deadly precision, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge incoming fire and strike back with brutal efficiency. Despite their skill, the humans were outnumbered. One of the drones targeted Pierce, its energy cannon charging. Locke spotted the danger too late. The blast struck Pierce square in the chest, throwing him across the room. "Pierce!" Ava screamed, but Locke grabbed her arm, pulling her behind cover. "We can't save him," Locke said, his voice cold. "Focus on the mission." Gritting her teeth, Ava nodded, firing another shot at the drones. As the battle raged on, Locke spotted a conduit running along the wall, one of the power lines feeding the force field. "There!" he shouted. "Ava, give me cover." Without waiting for a response, Locke sprinted toward the conduit, his body a blur of motion. He reached the line and tore it open with his bare hands, ripping out the power core. The force field flickered, then collapsed. The console's exposed. Ava yelled, "We're clear." Locke turned, his eyes blazing with determination. "Then let's finish this." The console glowed ominously in the heart of the chamber, an ancient device pulsing with alien energy. Locke advanced toward it, his gaze sharp and unyielding, while Ava and the remaining humans held the line against the relentless drones. Every movement was calculated, every decision a matter of life or death. The vault shuddered violently, its systems groaning under the strain of impending collapse. Locke reached the console, his hands moving over the controls with eerie confidence. Human ingenuity blended seamlessly with raw instinct as he deciphered the alien interface. Symbols shifted and reformed, their meanings unraveling like threads in his mind. "Status," he called over his shoulder, his voice steady despite the chaos. Ava ducked behind a column as a plasma bolt sizzled past her. "We're running out of ammo," she shouted. "These things don't quit." Locke didn't respond. He was too focused on the console, too aware of the stakes. The failsafe's core loomed on the holographic display, a sphere of raw energy surrounded by a lattice of stabilizers. Every alert screamed the same truth. The core was moments away from critical failure. Pierce's absence hung heavily over the group, but there was no time to mourn. Ava, her jaws set with grim determination, unleashed another volley of plasma fire. She aimed with precision, taking down 2 drones in rapid succession, but more emerged from the shadows, their metallic forms gleaming in the flickering light. "Locke, whatever you're doing, do it faster," she yelled. Locke's fingers danced across the console. His mind raced, piecing together fragments of alien logic. He found what he was looking for, the stabilization protocols. But just as he initiated the override, the console resisted, locking him out with a burst of static. "Damn it," Locke muttered, slamming a fist against the panel. The failsafe's core was deteriorating faster than expected. He needed more time, but the vault wasn't giving it to him. Back on the Halen R8, Rask and Crixer worked feverishly to regain control of the ship. Sparks flew from the console as Crixer rerouted power to the vault stabilizers, her hands shaking with the effort. The alien script on the display blurred together, but she forced herself to focus. One wrong move, and it would all be over. Rask stood guard, the plasma pistol clutched tightly in his hands. His injured shoulder throbbed, but he ignored the pain. The humans had underestimated them. They thought of the Halen R8 as nothing more than a tool, but it was still Rask's ship, his domain. "Stabilizers are online," Crixer said, her voice strained. "But it's not enough. The failsafe is too far gone." Rask's jaw tightened. "Then we'll force their hand." He activated the ship's internal systems, isolating the human's shuttle. With a few quick commands, he disabled its engines and locked its airlock seals. They wouldn't escape so easily. Inside the vault, the battle reached a fever pitch. Ava's plasma rifle overheated, forcing her to switch to a blade she'd scavenged from the fallen guards. The weapon crackled with energy as she charged a drone, slicing through its core in a spray of sparks. The humans were outnumbered, but their ferocity gave them an edge. They were fighting for their very survival, driven by a primal instinct that no alien defense system could anticipate. Locke, meanwhile, had bypassed the console's security measures, but the process was taking too long. He knew the others couldn't hold out much longer. He glanced at the holographic display, analyzing the core's deteriorating state. Option 2, then, he muttered. His fingers danced over the controls, initiating a new sequence. If he couldn't stabilize the core, he'd redirect its energy, a desperate gamble, but one that might give them a chance. Ava's voice cut through the chaos. Locke, we've got incoming. Something big. The chamber trembled as a massive drone emerged from the far side, its form dwarfing the others. Its sleek, armored body was equipped with heavy cannons and a shield generator that shimmered with raw energy. The humans froze for a moment, their weapons seeming pitiful in comparison. Locke's jaw tightened. This was it, the vault's final line of defense. Fall back, he shouted, abandoning the console. Regroup. Ava and the others retreated, forming a defensive line near the entrance. The massive drone advanced, its cannons charging. Locke grabbed a plasma rifle from one of his fallen comrades and joined the fray, his movements fluid and precise. The first blast from the drone's cannon struck the ground near them, throwing the humans off balance. Ava recovered quickly, hurling a grenade toward the drone. The explosion disrupted its shield for a moment, but the damage was superficial. We can't take that thing head-on, Ava shouted. Locke's mind raced. They needed a new strategy. He scanned the chamber, his eyes landing on the exposed power conduit he'd damaged earlier. An idea formed, a reckless, dangerous idea. Ava, cover me, he ordered, sprinting toward the conduit. Ava didn't hesitate. She and the others unleashed a barrage of fire, drawing the drone's attention. Its cannons whirred, targeting them instead of Locke. Locke reached the conduit, grabbing the exposed power core. The energy seared his skin, but he gritted his teeth, focusing through the pain. He aimed the core toward the drone and hurled it with all his strength. The core struck the drone's shield, detonating in a blinding flash. The explosion rippled through the chamber, shattering the drone's defenses. Ava seized the moment, charging forward with her blade. She leapt onto the drone's back, driving the blade into its central processor. The drone collapsed, its massive frame crumpling to the ground. The chamber fell silent, save for the distant hum of the failsafe's core. Locke staggered back to the console, his vision blurry from the explosion. He resumed his work, his hands trembling. The new sequence he'd initiated was almost complete. If it worked, they'd have just enough power to escape before the core collapsed. Ava, he said, his voice weak. We're out of time. Get the others to the shuttle. Ava hesitated. And you? I'll finish this, Locke said. Go. Reluctantly, Ava nodded, rallying the remaining humans. They retreated toward the airlock, leaving Locke alone with the console. Back on the Halen R8, Rask and Crixa watched as the vault systems continued to destabilize. The energy readings were off the charts, the core teetering on the brink of collapse. Crixa's voice wavered. Captain, if they succeed. They won't, Rask said, cutting her off. This ends here. He activated the ship's weapons, targeting the vault. If the humans couldn't be stopped from within, he'd destroy the station himself. As Locke finished the sequence, the vault's core shifted. The stabilizers flared to life, redirecting the core's energy outward. The station trembled, but the singularity's formation slowed. Locke grinned, his gamble paying off. But as he turned to leave, an alarm blared. The console displayed a new warning: the stabilizers were overloading. The vault was still going to collapse, just not as soon as expected. Locke sprinted toward the airlock, his body screaming in protest. Behind him, the chamber began to implode, metal twisting and warping under the immense pressure. The vault was dying. With every step Locke took, the ancient station groaned like a wounded beast, its metallic corridors buckling and splitting under the strain of the core's energy redirection. Chunks of debris rained down as he sprinted toward the airlock. Behind him, explosions rippled through the vault, swallowing entire sections in brilliant flashes of light. The singularity was no longer a distant threat, it was here, alive, tearing the station apart. Ava, I'm almost there. Locke shouted into his comm, his voice ragged. Static answered him. The vault's interference was worsening, but Locke didn't stop. He vaulted over a collapsed beam, his muscles screaming in protest. Every ounce of his focus was on one goal: survival. Meanwhile, in orbit around the vault, Rask's finger hovered over the weapon control panel. The Halen R8's cannons were locked on the station, primed to fire. Crixa watched him with apprehension, her clawed hands trembling. "Captain," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "If you fire now, you'll kill them all." Rask's expression hardened. "And if I don't, we'll all die anyway. The vault's collapse will tear a hole in subspace big enough to consume this entire sector." Crixa hesitated, torn between duty and morality. "They are still our allies." "They were our allies," Rask snapped, his voice rising. "But they've awakened something we can't control. The humans were never meant to walk this galaxy again." Inside the vault, Ava and the others reached the airlock, panting and blooded. The surviving team was a shadow of its former self, their armor scorched, their weapons nearly depleted. Ava slammed her hand against the panel, overriding the locks Rask had placed on their shuttle. "Come on, Locke," she muttered under her breath, glancing back toward the collapsing corridor. The vault shuddered violently, a deafening roar echoing through the station as the Singularity's energy began to breach containment. The stabilizers had bought them minutes, maybe seconds at best. The distant thud of footsteps drew Ava's attention. Locke emerged from the haze of smoke and fire, stumbling but alive. Ava rushed forward, grabbing his arm and pulling him into the shuttle. "Everyone in," she barked, sealing the airlock behind them. On the Halen R8, Crix's eyes widened as the vault's energy signature spiked. The Singularity was growing unstable, its tendrils of energy stretching toward the edges of the station. The readings on her console were incomprehensible, the numbers climbing beyond anything their instruments could measure. "Captain, we have to pull back," she urged. Rask's jaw clenched, his hands still poised over the weapon controls. His hatred for the humans warred with his survival instinct. The vault was no longer just a station, it was a ticking bomb, one that could obliterate everything if they didn't act. "Fine," Rask growled, slamming his fist down on the console. "Disengage weapons. Full retreat." The Halen R8's engines roared to life, pulling the ship away from the collapsing station. But as they retreated, Rask's gaze lingered on the vault, his expression dark. Ava strapped herself into the pilot's seat, her fingers flying over the controls as the shuttle's engines roared to life. Locke collapsed into the co-pilot's chair, his face pale and drenched in sweat. "Tell me you bought us enough time," Ava said, her voice tight. Locke shook his head. "Barely. The vault's core is stabilizing for now, but the Singularity." The shuttle lurched violently as a shockwave rippled through the station. Alarms blared as Ava wrestled with the controls, guiding the craft through the narrow, crumbling corridors of the vault. "Brace yourselves," she shouted, weaving through debris with terrifying precision. Explosions erupted on all sides, flames licking at the shuttle's hull as they accelerated toward the exit. Outside the vault, Rask watched in grim silence as the station began to implode. The Singularity's energy flared, tendrils of light tearing through the fabric of space. He opened a channel to the human's shuttle, his voice cold and unforgiving. "This is your mess," he said. "If you survive, don't think for a second that we're done." Ava's voice crackled over the comm. "If we survive, Captain, you'll have bigger problems than us." Rask's lips curled into a snarl, but he didn't respond. The Halen R8 sped away, leaving the humans to their fate. The shuttle burst from the vault's collapsing superstructure, a plume of fire and debris trailing behind it. Ava pushed the engines to their limit, the craft shaking violently as it raced away from the Singularity's expanding reach. Come on," she muttered, her knuckles white as she gripped the controls. Locke stared out the viewport, his expression unreadable. The vault was a dying star, its core collapsing inward as the Singularity consumed it. But amidst the destruction, something stirred, a presence vast and incomprehensible, awakening in the heart of the Singularity. "What is that?" Locke whispered, his voice tinged with awe and terror. Ava followed his gaze, her breath catching in her throat. The singularity pulsed with a rhythm that felt alive, its energy forming shapes that defied understanding. For a brief moment, the humans glimpsed the truth. The vault had been more than a prison. It had been a warning. The shuttle breached the outer edges of the collapsing field, the singularity's pull weakening as they sped toward the safety of open space. Ava let out a shaky breath, her hands trembling as she guided the craft toward the Halen R8. But Locke's gaze remained fixed on the viewport, his mind racing. The presence they'd felt in the singularity wasn't fading, it was growing. And deep in his gut, he knew the truth. The humans' awakening was only the beginning. As the shuttle docked with the Halen R8, Rask and Crixa watched from the bridge. The humans were alive, but the question lingered, for how long? The vault was gone, but its legacy remained. Something ancient had been disturbed, something that couldn't be undone. And in the vast silence of space, a voice echoed, a voice that wasn't human, but that carried with it a single, chilling thought. They broke the rule. And now, we are awake.